published my first book, The Bright Side of a Broken Heart, a year ago this month. And I started writing it in December of 2016. And I thought I would talk to you a little bit today about what the book is about and what my process was like writing it and sending it out into the world. So in February of 2016, I went through a blindsiding breakup and also a dark night of the soul. So the breakup itself was incredibly painful and shocking, and I fell into a deep depression. But what I began to recognize was that what I was experiencing was not so much about this man choosing to leave and choosing to leave the way that he did, but it was this portal, this opening for me to begin to process all of the pain I had been carrying in my life. And sometimes I'll joke around and say that it was kind of like the universe smacked me on my ass and was like, you need to be dealing with this stuff now. Like that now is the time, you don't really have a choice anymore. And that's really what it felt like for me. I didn't really have a choice anymore. I was incredibly depressed. I was close to being suicidal. I did not want to live anymore. And I really had no choice but to begin to look at, well, why do I feel like this? And what do I need to do to create the life that I want to live? And really, it wasn't so much about like, let me make this wonderful life, because I really didn't care about living at that point. It was a deeper wisdom coming through that just said, you just need to love yourself right now. You just need to love yourself through every bit of this pain right now. That's it. That's all you can do. And moment by moment, each opportunity I had to love myself was teaching me about my experience. And so months in, I began to start to recognize that the pain I was feeling was not really about this person. It wasn't really about this relationship ending. It wasn't totally about my beliefs about relationships and myself. It was about my beliefs about who I was, and all of the painful experiences in my life that I had been pretending weren't a part of me anymore. They were all very much alive, and they were coming to the surface because I no longer had any mechanism working that was pushing it away because I was so depressed. So it was just, the pain was just surfacing and surfacing and surfacing. And I decided to take the opportunity to heal myself. And it really, again, it just did not feel like a choice. It felt like something that I had to do. I didn't know what else I could possibly do aside from numbing out. And that wasn't an option for me. I had already, well, my soul already was on a journey of feeling that medication was never an option for me. I'd always been somewhat depressed throughout my life, and was offered that options multiple times and always had a deep no, even as depressed as I was. I just knew that there was some other path that I needed to take, and I needed to figure it out on my own, and I did. And so this book, there's parts of this book, one story in particular where I was incredibly heartbroken, depressed, and just sobbing, crying constantly. It was just like the floodgates opened and it just didn't stop. And I should also say that part of what happened to me was that those gates did open and everything was really raw and tender. So for example, I would go to a yoga class and like my hips were incredibly open. I was incredibly raw. So I could be like very deep in poses, which is why I was doing a lot of yin yoga at the time, because I actually had no energy to do any real physical movement. I couldn't really do a vinyasa class. I could not go for a run. I could hardly just like walk and get to my car. And so I would be in class and I would be crying, and I would be driving home and I'd have tears coming down my face. I would wake up in the morning and have tears streaming down my face, and I would call my mom and I could hardly get words out. She would pick up the phone oftentimes and just hear me crying, or hear silence until she heard me crying. And I felt unbearably lost. And I can still feel that, like the sadness in here around that time, because it was such a painful time in my life. And I had a moment that I write about in the book where I begged my mom to come stay with me. And this was months after the breakup. And she said, "I can't save you." And I knew, like, that was exactly what I needed to hear. You know, she said it with love. It broke her heart to say it, because of course she wanted to come be with me. She lives across the country, but she knew that she would have to leave. And when she left, I would have to be with myself again. And she gave me the words that I needed to hear, which were like, only you can save yourself. Nobody is coming to save you. This is all you. This is your job. And so I started the grueling work of facing my pain instead of trying to push it away. And so for a lot of those moments during those months, it was me wanting the pain to go away, wanting the depression to go away. And there was a moment when I felt a little bit better one morning. Like, I woke up and I felt like things are getting better, like just a little bit better. And it gave me hope. And I hadn't had hope in a really long time. And I woke up the next morning and didn't know it was possible to feel worse, but felt probably 100 times worse than I had felt the day before. And it was excruciating. I was miserable, and these were the times when I felt like, yeah, I just want my life to be over. This is a horrible way to live. And something happened to me. I went to a laundromat. I think I was reading Pema Chodron's book at the time, When Things Fall Apart, which I will link to in the information below. And I read something about being present and surrendering. And I was at the laundromat just watching the clothes go round and round. And I had so much sadness coming up to the surface and needed to sob. And so held it back until I could get home, literally walked in the door, fell against the door, and just started sobbing. And I would suggest watching my video about sadness and working with sadness and what was happening to me. And I had a deep shift occur that has stayed with me ever since. And it was that I was creating my own suffering by fighting my pain. And so something changed where I suddenly felt very deep within me. This was not an intellectual decision with my mind. It was something deep within me that was understanding. Every single time I tried to push my pain away, I caused so much more suffering from myself, because what I actually needed to do was pull my pain closer and love myself through it. So that's what my book is about. My book is about heartbreak. It's about going through a devastating breakup, but it's about what you can learn about yourself through the hard moments of your life. Through the painful experience of this breakup, I started to recognize that I had abandoned myself over and over and over again throughout my life. And that creates deep, deep, deep pain. I was heartbroken for the ways that I had abandoned myself over and over and over again. And so my healing became this process of reclaiming all of the parts of myself I had lost and abandoned along the way. So again, the book is called The Bright Side of a Broken Heart. You can read this book within like an hour, hour and a half. And there's a lot of depth to it. You know, you can read one chapter. I'll just show you. they're pretty short, little chapters, and within each one of these short little chapters is a whole lot of wisdom. And so this book has been out in the world for about a year. And it's been a really beautiful process when you write a book. If you are watching this and you've written a book, you know what I mean. But the book takes on a life of its own. Once you're done with it and you send it out into the world, it's on its own journey. And so, this journey for the past year, this book has supported a lot of people. It's touched a lot of hearts. And I'm really grateful for that, because it could not have been written. It would have been much easier for me to not write it. And one of the reasons that I did write it was because, I did a breathwork session and the book just kind of came through me. It was like, my breathwork session was done. I suddenly had a vision of the first page, which I will actually read you. And I wrote it down in my phone. And I couldn't stop. The second chapter came out, the third chapter came out, and I was just writing all of this in my phone. And then I just started working on the book, and it just literally fell through me. And then I went through a grueling months and months and months of editing and writing new portions and healing myself through writing the book. And the book that fell through me in the beginning, there's some parts of that, but it is not this book. This book is, it was part of my healing process. It was me learning about myself through writing, sitting in my kitchen, writing, feeling into certain experiences, feeling into my pain, crying in the kitchen, writing some more, crying again, laying down and doing breath work, going back and writing, spending a lot of weekends at home healing through writing and breathing. So I will leave you with the first chapter of my book called We Are Stardust. One summer, a few years ago, my family and I pulled old comforters out of closets and plopped ourselves under the meteor shower in our backyard. Between sips of red wine, we oohed and ahed as each chunk of rock burst into light and disintegrated. There is beauty in every ending. If you're interested in supporting me and purchasing this book, I would love it if you would do so through my website, Pushing Beauty. That supports me much more than purchasing the book through Amazon. So you can get the link below. Thank you for being here with me, for listening to part of this journey, and I really appreciate you being here with me. If you like this and you want to hear more from me, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you so much, and hope to see you again.